Making headlines. The president makes a phone call to check on the health and well-being of the Hajj pilgrims, extending his best wishes for their pilgrimage on the occasion of Hajj Day. President of China Xi Jinping reveals his wish to strengthen strategic ties with the Maldives. And the president requests all individuals to celebrate Eid al-Adha in accordance with Islamic principles, urging against the incorporation of foreign traditions.
Welcome to the English News. I'm your host Malak Ahmad Fayaz. Now for the news in detail. President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu makes a phone call to check on the health and well-being of the Hajj pilgrims, extending his best wishes for their pilgrimage on the occasion of Hajj Day. In a social media post, President Dr. Muizzu congratulated everyone on the occasion of Hajj Day, describing it as one of the most blessed days of the year, filled with the help and approval of the Almighty. This year, the 1,150 individuals from the Maldives traveled to Makkah for Hajj. It includes 50 individuals sent as part of President Dr. Muizzu's pledge to send 1,000 individuals registered as poor for Hajj over the next 5 years. Minister of Education Dr. Ismail Shafiu accompanied the pilgrims as the Amirul Hajj. In addition, Minister of Islamic Affairs Dr. Muhammad Shahim Ali Said is participating in this year's Hajj mission. President of China Xi Jinping reveals his wish to strengthen strategic ties with the Maldives. The remarks were made by the President of China in a congratulatory letter delivered to President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu on the occasion of his birthday.
The letter was presented to President Dr. Muizzu by the ambassador of China to the Maldives, Wang Lijin. In the letter presented, President Xi Jinping expressed his sincere greetings and best wishes to President Dr. Muizzu. He also emphasized the importance of bilateral relations and reiterated his enthusiasm for strengthening the China-Maldives comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership and jointly building a China-Maldives community with a shared future. Meanwhile, President Dr. Muizzu expressed gratitude to the ambassador for personally delivering the letter and stated that it was a tremendous pleasure to receive it. The president had also written a congratulatory message to President Xi Jinping, who celebrates his birthday on the same day. The discussions further focused on enhancing collaboration and improving bilateral ties between the nations. They also discussed future agreements and forthcoming collaborative initiatives for development. Additionally, the Chinese ambassador stated that China is determined to assist with the Maldives' economic development and inquired about areas where the Maldivian government requires additional assistance. Concluding the meeting, President Dr. Muizzu and the Chinese ambassador expressed optimism for a successful bilateral relationship in the future.
President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu urges all individuals to celebrate Al-Ha Eid in accordance with Islamic principles, urging against the incorporation of foreign traditions.
The president made the request while conveying heartfelt felicitations to the residents and the entire Islamic Ummah holding Eid celebrations. In his message, President Dr. Muizzu stated that Eid celebrations symbolizes the unity of the Islamic Ummah as mentioned by the Holy Prophet Muhammad. The president emphasized that the most striking illustration of the metaphor, when one part of the body experiences the entire body bears the pain, can be observed within the Islamic Ummah, as Muslims worldwide will continue to pray and offer assistance to the Palestinians on this special day. He also reiterated the Maldives' steadfast commitment to the rights and freedom of Palestine, promising their remembrance in the prayers of all Maldivians. Describing that Eid al-Adha is celebrated following one of the most blessed days of the year, the day of Hajj, President Dr. Muizzu urged all individuals to always reflect the countless blessings bestowed by Allah. Furthermore, President Dr. Muizzu stated that the lighting up of islands and cities and activities organized for Eid celebrations not only assist to enhance societal ties, but is also key evidence of the perfection and involvement within the religion. The president stressed the significance of fostering Islamic principles and teachings and patriotism in the hearts of children in these occasions. Concluding his message, President Dr. Muizzu extended Eid felicitations to all residents and Islamic nations.
Vice President Hussein Mohammad Latif calls on the public to strengthen the bonds of friendship this Al-Ha Eid. In a social media post, Vice President Latif extended his warm wishes for a happy Al-Ha Eid to all Muslim brothers and sisters in the Maldives. This year, Al-Ha Eid falls on June 16th. The Eid celebrations will take place across the country, and President Dr. Mohammad Muizzu has encouraged the public to preserve the customs and traditions of the people during the various games and activities of Eid. Maldives National Defence Force MNDF Coast Guard commences a special Operation Al-Adha to monitor and check the vessels traveling during the Eid al-Ha holidays. MNDF stated that the operation is carried out on all Eid holidays to ensure the safety and security of seafarers and vessels. MNDF Coast Guard announced that they will ensure that all vessels meet the set standards as outlined in the safety certificates during the operation, which is slated to continue till June 21st. As such, MNDF will be checking the marine VHFs of the vessels, a valid license from the captain of the vessel, and other significant factors which may affect the safety and security of the passengers. In addition to MNDF, Maldives Police Service MPS will also provide assistance to conduct the operations. The operations are set to take place in the Greater Malay region and some islands which are included in the MNDF's area commands. Maldives Monetary Authority MMA reveals that all sectors other than the fishing industry have progressed significantly in the first quarter of the year. The announcement was made by MMA in the quarterly economic bulletin on economic activity on the first 3 months of the year.
The report released by MMA shows that all major economic sectors of the country saw a boost in activity during the first quarter compared to the previous quarter in 2023, with the exception of the fishing sector. The report indicated that the increase in tourist arrival and their average stay contributed to the remarkable progress in the tourism sector. It noted that the arrival of 500,000 tourists within the first quarter was a significant achievement. The success was driven by record numbers of tourists from Europe, Asia, and the Pacific regions. Additionally, the report also highlighted that the first quarter saw the highest number of tourists visiting the Maldives in the first quarter since the COVID-19 pandemic. MMS report sheds light on the progress achieved by other industries linked with the tourism sector. As such, the transportation industry, telecommunication sector, and the wholesale and retail sector also experienced growth. Despite the slowdown in the economic growth during the fourth quarter of 2023, the economic growth has boosted by 8.8% in the first quarter of this year compared to the pre-COVID pace. While the nation continues to experience economic development, efforts are underway by the government to expand and expedite sustainable economic growth. Experts say that the government's commitment and dedication to increase revenue, reduce expenditure, and increase net profits will yield positive results.
The State Trading Organization STO approves a dividend distribution of $5.20 per share.
The decision taken by STO Board of Directors will be proposed at the company's annual general meeting AGM. If approved, it will mark the highest dividend payout by the company in the past 17 years. Shareholders will vote on the dividend proposal at the AGM. STO also distributed a dividend of $4.99 per share in 2022. In the previous year, STO reported a revenue of $1 billion with an operating profit of $78 million. The company recorded a pre-tax profit of $64 million and a net profit after tax of $53 million. STO attributed the increase in total profits to higher fuel sales and growth in other business areas. The 2023 annual general meeting is scheduled for July.
G7 leaders meeting in Italy hardens their tone against China, warning Beijing to stop sending weapons, components to Russia and play by the rules on trade. China was a key focus of the Group of Seven talks in Puglia amid soaring trade relations between Beijing and the West and concerns that its supplies of equipment to Moscow are fueling Russia's war in Ukraine. The leaders said in an end-of-summit statement that they call on China to cease the transfer of dual-use materials, including weapons, components and equipment that are inputs for Russia's defense sector. The group of 7 also took aim at what it called dangerous insertions by China in the contested South China Sea, where worries of a military escalation between Beijing and its neighbors are rising. The statement said that they oppose China's militarization and coercive and intimidation activities in the South China Sea, using stronger language than at last year's summit in Japan. After a first day dominated by Ukraine, US President Joe Biden and the leaders of Japan, France, Germany, Canada, Britain, and host country Italy turned their focus to the world's second largest economy, a superpower with a huge influence on geopolitics and global trade. The talks attended by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky were marked by a strong show of G7 support by Kiev, with an agreement to use profits from frozen Russian assets to provide a new $50 billion loan to Ukraine. With the war in its third year, the G7 said that the deal sent an unmistakable signal to Russian President Vladimir Putin that they would back Kiev as long as it takes. But a spat temporarily overshadowed that agreement as the US and France pushed back after reports that Italy's far-right Premier Giorgia Meloni, the summit host, tried to water down the language on women's rights. Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced Saturday that his country will suspend coal exports to Israel as a rebuke against its deadly war against Hamas in Gaza. Colombia is Israel's main coal supplier, with exports of some $450 million in 2023, according to the Israeli embassy in Bogota, which remains operational despite Petro's government severing diplomatic ties in May. Petro, Colombia's first leftist president and a fierce critic of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said on social media that coal exports to Israel would be suspended until the genocide stops. A government decree specified that the restrictions would remain until the orders of provisional measures issued by the International Court of Justice, ICJ, are fully complied with. In late May, as part of a pending case brought by South Africa, the ICJ ordered Israel to halt its offensive on the southern Gaza city of Rafah, while also demanding the release of hostages and the unhindered provision of humanitarian aid into the Palestinian territory. According to the Colombian government, the coal export ban will enter into force 5 days after the decree is published in the official gazette and will not affect goods that have already been authorized for shipment. Bogota underscored coal's role as a strategic resource for the manufacture of weapons, the mobilization of troops, and the manufacture of provisions for military operations. Petro also said Colombia would stop purchasing weapons made by Israel, one of the main suppliers of the South American country's security forces. On Thursday, the Colombian Mining Association expressed concern over the possibility of exports being suspended, noting a trade treaty between the two nations in place since 2020. Over the Gaza conflict, and open an embassy in the Palestinian territories. Israel's retaliatory military offensive has killed at least 36,801 people in Gaza, also mostly civilians, according to the Hamas-run territory's health ministry. Far from the gleaming high-rises of India's financial capital, Mumbai, impoverished villages in areas supplying the megacity's water are running dry, a crisis repeated across the country that experts say foreshadows terrifying problems. Demand is increasing in the world's most populous nation of 1.4 billion people, but supplies are shrinking, with climate change driving erratic rainfall and extreme heat. Large-scale infrastructure for Mumbai includes reservoirs connected by canals and pipelines channeling water from 100 kilometers away. But experts say a failure of basic planning means that the network is often not connected to hundreds of rural villages in the region and several nearby districts. Instead, they rely on traditional wells. But demand for outstrips meager resources and critical groundwater levels are falling. Climate change is shifting weather patterns, bringing longer-lasting and more intense droughts. Wells rapidly run dry early in the extreme heat. Temperatures this year surged above a brutal 45 degrees Celsius. When the well dries, the village then relies on a government tanker with irregular supplies 2 or 3 times a week. It brings untreated water from a river where people wash and animal graze. Local government authorities said that the area is also the source of major reservoirs supplying some 60% of water to Mumbai. Mumbai is India's second biggest and rapidly expanding city with an estimated population of 22 million. Government authorities, both at the state level and in New Delhi, say they are committed to tackling the problem and have announced repeated schemes to address the water crisis. but villagers say they have not reached them yet. Israel's military said Sunday it would pause fighting around a South Gaza route daily to facilitate aid deliveries following months of warnings of famine in the besieged Palestinian territory. The announcement of a local tactical pause of military activity during daylight hours in an area of Rafah came a day after 8 Israeli soldiers were killed in a blast near the far southern city, and 3 more troops died elsewhere in one of the heaviest losses for the army in its war against Hamas militants. UN agencies and aid groups have repeatedly sounded the alarm of dire shortages of food and other essentials in the Gaza Strip, exacerbated by overland access restrictions and the closure of the key Rafah crossing with Egypt since Israeli forces seized it in early May. The decision, which the military said was already in effect, was part of efforts to increase the volumes of humanitarian aid entering the Gaza Strip following discussions with the UN and other organizations. The announcement also comes on the eve of the Muslim holiday of Al-Eid. The United States, which has been pressing close ally Israel as well as Hamas to agree to a ceasefire plan laid out by President Joe Biden, imposed sanctions on an extremist Israeli group for blocking and attacking Gaza-bound aid convoys. Israel militants have also seized 251 hostages. Of these, 116 remain in Gaza, although the army says 41 are dead. Israel's retaliatory offensive has killed at least 37,296 people in Gaza, also mostly civilians according to the health ministry in the Hamas-ruled territory. World Food Programme Deputy Executive Director Carl Skau said recently that with lawlessness inside the Strip and active conflict, it has become close to impossible to deliver the level of aid that meets the growing demands on the ground. G7 leaders on Friday said aid agencies must be allowed to work unhindered in Gaza, calling for the rapid and unimpeded passage of humanitarian relief for civilians in need. War, climate change, and man-made shortages bring Sudan, a nation already facing a litany of horrors, to the shores of a water crisis. The country at large, despite its many water sources including the mighty Nile River, is no stranger to water scarcity. Even before the war, a quarter of the population had to walk more than 50 minutes to fetch water, according to the United Nations UN. Now from the western deserts of Darfur to the fertile Nile Valley and all the way to the Red Sea coast, a water crisis has hit 48 million war-weary Sudanese who, the US ambassador to the United Nations, said are already facing the largest humanitarian crisis on the face of the planet. Around 110 kilometers east of Sortoni, deadly clashes in North Darfur's capital, besieged by RSF, threaten water access for more than 800,000 civilians. Medical charity Doctors Without Borders, MSF, said fighting had killed at least 226. Just outside the city, fighting over the Golo water reservoir risks cutting off safe and adequate water for about 270,000 people, the UN Children's Agency UNICEF has warned. Access to water and other scarce resources has long been a source of conflict in Sudan. The UN Security Council, UNSC, demanded that the siege end. If it goes on, hundreds of thousands more people who rely on the area's groundwater will go without. The water is here, but it's more than 60 meters deep, deeper than a hand pump can go, according to a European diplomat with years of experience in Sudan's water sector. If the RSF does not allow fuel to go in, the water stations will stop working, he told AFP, requesting anonymity because the diplomat was not authorized to speak to media. For a large part of the population, there will simply be no water. England must be exceptional to end a 58-year major tournament title drought, according to manager Gareth Southgate, as they kick off their Euro 2024 campaign against Serbia. The Three Lions must cope with the pressure of being hyped as one of the favourites for the tournament as Southgate aims to finally steer a richly talented generation to glory. England are aiming to make amends after losing the final of Euro 2020 to Italy on home soil at Wembley. Under Southgate, they have also come close to 2 World Cups, and the England boss has acknowledged this could be his final opportunity for major tournament success. Southgate said at his pre-match press conference that there are a lot of good teams in this tournament and they have to be exceptional to progress through the group and have the opportunity to go further. He said that their focus is to qualify from the group, and when they are trying to achieve exceptional things, they have to break it down into chunks. Despite a remarkable goal-scoring record at club and international level, England captain Harry Kane is yet to win a major trophy in his career. England are expected to cruise through Group C, which also contains Denmark and Slovenia. There's little for Southgate to fear based on Serbia's performance in qualifying. Dragons side won just 4 of their 8 qualifiers, losing twice to Hungary, and were held on both occasions by Bulgaria. However, they have a striker in form in Alexander Mitrovic, who is well known to Premier League fans from his 8 years in England with Newcastle and Fulham. Mitrovic has scored 40 goals in 43 games since joining Saudi side Al Hilal, helping them to an unbeaten domestic treble. Serbia coach is aware of the scale of the task facing his side, but said England had to prove their status as pre-tournament favourites once the action gets underway. High-speed sleeper trains linking Beijing and Shanghai with Hong Kong begins operating. Excited and visibly satisfied with the new train line, which will facilitate exchanges between the Chinese mainland and Hong Kong, many passengers arrived at the station earlier to ensure they could complete all formalities on time. At the West Kowloon railway station, the first 2 high-speed trains to Beijing West Station and Shanghai Hongqiao Station departed at 6:24 and 7:49. At 5:30, many passengers on the first sleeper train to Beijing went through the last inspection procedures and came to the arrival hall to wait for ticket check. Wan Kun Nam, Deputy Team Leader of Duty, Team 4 at the West Kowloon border checkpoint, stated that passengers are required to go through the co-location immigration procedures. Today, 381 passengers departed from West Kowloon Station on the overnight trains purchased sleeper tickets, and 8 passengers bought second-class tickets. He further said that the team will inspect all channels to ensure smooth clearance of passengers. Tickets for the first sleeper train went on sale on June 5th, and all tickets have already been sold out. The sleeper trains have 2 second-class carriages, 13 sleeper carriages, and 1 dining carriage. Each compartment has 4 beds. The new train service runs between Hong Kong's West Kowloon Station and Beijing West Railway Station from Friday to Monday. Travel time between Beijing and Hong Kong will be reduced to about 12.5 hours from 24.5 hours. That's all the news we have for today. Thank you all for watching.
Minifemma